Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Would you all mute your microphones while I lead you in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Ms. Posey, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, Madam Supervisor. Trustee Bussino?
Here.
Trustee Nevers?
Present.
Trustee Oliver?
Here.
Trustee Smith?
Here.
Treasurer Goodhue?
Here.
Clerk Posey here. Supervisor Dunn?
Here. Thank you.
All members are present.
Thank you very much. Next, we have the approval of the agenda items with any additions, deletions, or corrections. Ms. Posey, do you have any corrections to the agenda?
I do not. I believe Ms. Goodhue sent an email indicating that she would like to add something on this evening.
Ms. Goodhue?
Yes. Yes. We pulled off a couple of meetings ago, the property on 26 Mile Road, the resolution for the grant. And we thought we had more time, but the deadline is June 1st. We received an email on Monday saying that they needed an immediate reply. So I want to add to the agenda a request to adopt the resolution to authorize submission of the MNRTF grant application for $1.2 million for the 26 Mile Road properties. Information was sent to you today by Mr. Bunch. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Karen, I got a question on that. Was that
Yes.
the Six Rivers Conservatory? Was
Yes.
that their group? Okay.
Yes.
And that was for the 1.2 million. That was the option.
Yes.
Okay. All righty. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Madam Chair, I'd also like to inquire as to why the agenda, the public comments, and the non-agenda items are put together.
I probably asked Ms. Posey that question.
Treasurer Goodhue, it's been like that since we've been doing the Zoom meetings.
Okay, I must have not noticed it before.
I guess
Okay.
not. Okay.
Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Karen Goodhue will make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
And I will second that, Nancy Nevers.
Motion by Ms. Goodhue, seconded by Ms. Nevers to approve the agenda with the one add-on. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Supervisor,
Aye.
I have to call a roll call vote on the Zoom
Call
meeting.
roll.
Wait, excuse me, Ms. Posey, would you call the roll?
Yes, Madam Supervisor. Treasurer Goodhue?
Yes.
Trustee Nevers?
Yes.
Trustee Bussino?
Yes.
Trustee Oliver?
Yes.
Trustee Smith?
Yes.
Clerk Posey, yes. Supervisor Dunn?
Yes. Thank you.
And motion carries.
As usual, there are two bill runs. This is for approval of the bills. If you wish an item removed, please indicate so at this time.
Madam Chair, this is Nancy Nevers. If there are no questions about either bill run, I move that we approve both. Thank you.
Thank you. Motion by Ms. Nevers,
Support by Goodhue.
supported by Ms. Goodhue to authorize payment of both bill runs. Ms. Posey, would you call the roll?
Yes, Madam Supervisor. Trustee Nevers,
Yes.
Treasurer Goodhue,
Yes.
Trustee Bucino,
Yes.
Trustee Oliver,
Yes.
Trustee Smith,
Yes.
Clerk Posey, yes, and Supervisor Dunn.
Yes. Thank you. Now we have the approval of the previous meeting minutes, those being from March 27, and the special meeting from April, no, I'm sorry. April 22nd, and the special meeting from April 29th. Are there any additional deletions or corrections to minutes?
Hearing none, Madam Supervisor, Clerk Posey makes a motion to approve the previous meeting minutes from April 22nd, closed session meeting minutes from April 22nd, and special meeting minutes from April 29th, 2020.
Motion by Ms. Posey,
Karen Goodhue, support.
seconded by Ms. Goodhue. Ms. Posey, call the roll.
Yes, Madam Supervisor. Clerk Posey, yes. Treasurer Goodhue,
Yes.
Trustee Bucino,
Yes.
Trustee Nevers,
Yes.
Trustee Oliver,
Yes.
Trustee Smith,
Yes.
and Supervisor Dunn.
Yes, thank you. The consent agenda items is next. These are routine matters that come before the board. If you wish to discuss an item on the consent, please indicate so at this time.
Madam Chair, this is Karen Goodhue. I will make a motion to accept the consent agenda items as presented.
Thank you. Motion by Ms. Goodhue,
Trustee Bucino,
Support.
Smith.
Go ahead, Tim. Sorry.
seconded by Ms. Smith to approve the consent agenda. Ms. Posey, would you call the roll?
Yes, Madam Supervisor. Treasurer Goodhue,
Yes.
Trustee Smith,
Yes.
Trustee Bucino,
Yes.
Trustee Nevers,
Yes.
Trustee Oliver,
Yes.
Clerk Posey, yes, and Supervisor Dunn.
Yes. Thank you. Next, we have public comments on agenda and non-agenda items. If you wish to speak, please state your name. And remember, there is a 3-minute time limit.
I'd also like to remind people to raise their hand virtually, either using the Zoom control panel or *9 on your phone. Pamela Liedland, go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, because I have no video, so I can't see you. My name is Pam Liedline, 17961 Birch Drive, Macomb, Michigan. And I'm speaking to remind you that the first Friday in June is National Gun Violence Awareness Day. The National Gun Violence Awareness Day is also called Wear Orange Day. Wear Orange Day was initiated by friends of Adia Pendleton, a 15-year-old honor student who was killed in Chicago a week after she and her classmates performed at President Obama's second inauguration. Orange was chosen since it is bright and a color that hunters wear to stand out so they won't be shot. I spoke to this board last year and the year before and shared the story of my daughter, Michelle Packard, who was also an innocent victim after being struck and killed by a stray bullet in Lansing on June 4th, 2012, as she and her fiance waited in a park for a fireworks display to begin. I think of her every day. I ask that you think of her on June 5th by wearing orange. More than 100 people are killed every day by guns in the United States. Twice that number are wounded. Gun deaths may take many forms, including suicides, unintentional shootings, and homicides. It is now the leading cause of death for American children and teens. Here are just a few of the stories that have been in the news in the last week. An 8-year-old Indiana boy was killed in his home by a stray bullet. A jogger in Georgia was shot and killed. A truck driver in Michigan was shot at 3 times as he changed lanes on the expressway. A 7-year-old child was shot in Detroit. A driver was shot as he drove on the Southfield Freeway. A 21-year-old was shot and killed during a domestic incident in Shelby Township. A security guard was shot and killed at a Family Dollar in Flint in a dispute over a mask. 2 men were shot and killed in Kentwood, Michigan. This is under investigation. An argument among roommates in Kalamazoo resulted in shots fired. Gun Violence Awareness Day is just that, bringing awareness to the number of incidents of gun violence that occur every day. Many do not even make the news. So I'm asking you to remember to wear orange on June 5th to honor the victims and survivors of gun violence in our county, our state, and our country. Thank you.
Okay, next we have phone number ending in 8922. Go ahead.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Supervisor and distinguished board members. My name is Dennis Martin, representing AFSCME Local 1917. I'm here tonight to address some false statements Trustee Nevers have made over the past several meetings. Specifically, Trustee Nevers has implied that the negative evaluation Mr. Sorty received from all but a few department heads was the result of Mr. Sorty's behavior towards the bargaining team during negotiations. And I'm here to assure you that that statement is absolutely false. In fact, the department heads stand by their evaluation. Look forward to Trustees Nevers following through on her previous public statement, promising to talk to each of them regarding those evaluations. After falsehood repeated by Trustee Nevers is that Mr. Sorty presented the union with an actuarial report during negotiations representing the health care costs of the township. Let me assure you that is not the case. In fact, to the best of our knowledge, no such report exists, and if it does, it certainly wasn't submitted as promised by Mr. Sorty to the bargaining team. However, as a good faith measure, the union provided Mr. Sorty with projected future health care costs, pointed out that retiree health care is 100% funded. The union further pointed out that since no retirees can be added to the plan, the fund will more likely continue to grow and exceed 100% funding going forward. And if not, suggested reopening the contract if costs were to exceed a certain agreed upon threshold. Also, a lot has been said about having employee evaluations, and once again, this was something Mr. Sorty was supposed to bring to the bargaining table, but failed to follow through on, so nothing was done despite the fact that the union provided suggestions and a template on how this could be accomplished. So Trustee Nevers' narrative that the union is trying to pilfer the township for their own benefit is not true. Historically, it is management union that has taken the lead in bringing innovative ideas to the township to save money and has taken concessions and contracts to help the township financially. Interest-based bargaining for health care, higher co-pays, tiered employees, deferred pay increases, and step pay increases are just few of the things that this union has done for Macomb Township. Our members have not received free snow plowing from the county, nor did they work part-time and receive health care benefits that are better than some of those working full-time for Macomb Township. Regrettably, your management employees have had to endure board members who were investigated for criminal behavior and have had appeared before a federal grand jury to give testimony in reference to the illegal conduct and had to pay out of pocket for their own legal counsel despite not being the ones under investigation. Ever since this time, board members have maintained a hostile demeanor towards the very same employees who strive to deliver quality services to our residents in a professional manner. And let me close by assuring you that we will continue doing our jobs and hope that the township leadership will allow us to serve the community without being targeted with false statements and narratives being made for political gain. We are professionals who enjoy our work and do not wish to be part of the negative politics in the community, but rather the instrument of providing professional services and good governance to the community. Thank you.
Mr. Martin, your time is up. Thank you.
Okay, we have Mr. Frank Cusimano. Go ahead.
Frank Cusimano, 16188 Jenny Drive. I just have a few questions and I invite responses by the members of the Board of Trustees. When is the township going to pass a bylaw or an ordinance that codifies the order of business under the Open Meetings Act? That's something that Greg Means mentioned a while back. I know it came up in some litigation that was filed, and Supervisor Dunn basically shrugged her shoulders and that there is no board resolution setting the order of business. That opens the township to litigation for violation of the Open Meetings Act. I also have a question regarding the Macomb Township Employee Pension Board. Why is the meetings of the pension board, which I believe consists of the supervisor, the treasurer, the clerk, and the finance director, not posted on the website under the Open Meetings Act? There may be a reasonable explanation for this. I just haven't been able to find where that those meetings are being held under the OMA. And on the Foley Mansfield bill, what is the billable rate? Is the board members going to compare it to Kirk and Huth's charges, or Riley Rensilio, Siebert and Dulowski when they represented the township, or York, Dolan and Tomlinson? These are municipal attorneys, and I don't know what their billable rates are. I do know that that it seems to be up in the air what Assorti's rate costs the township for his legal services, and that there's no way that the Board of Trustees can assess his job performance, and since no one's keeping track of what he did, and that was one of the bases for him to argue that he was being unjustly terminated without just cause. Also, there's been questions by members of the community about the costs of the declaration of a state of emergency and whether or not there's being bills and indebtedness incurred by the township. I know that at least one trustee was going to introduce an agenda item to force a vote for the disclosure of those expenses. As to the FOIA appeal that's on the agenda today, I would just suggest to the Board of Trustees that any communications that are attorney-client privilege should be redacted, and that transparency is paramount in the township given the history of corruption. I also want to compliment the ASME unit spokesperson that just made the comment about acting professionally and wanting to do a good job. I appreciate that he's presented that to the public for consideration. Thank you. That concludes my remarks for today.
Thank you.
Okay, we have Tom Sokol. Go ahead.
Hello, this is Tom Sokol. My address is on file with the clerk's office. I did want to speak on behalf of the Second Amendment in our township. I do empathize with anybody that has lost their family to tragedy. I've lost an uncle. I've had my grandfather shot. I've had a cousin shot, but they were all shot by people, not innate objects. And the Second Amendment is one of the most important freedoms we have in this country. And although everybody has a right to speak at our board meetings, I don't think a lot of residents in our township appreciate national political organizations trying to push their weight into our township, because we all know under the disguise of awareness and safety this organization wants to take away our rights. They want to take away our guns. They want to take away our magazines. They want to take away all types of our Second Amendment rights, and I stand against that. I also wanted to speak in response to the ASME union leader, and I do appreciate his professionalism, and I do appreciate the professionalism of many of the department heads in that union. But I do have a disagreement with Mr. Cusimano in that I do believe that union is very political, involved in politics. They have their own union political action committee that donated to Dino Bucci, that donated to many board members, donated to Janet Dunn and many others consistently, to those that have been convicted of corruption. And they did ask for a 27% raise. And it's a fact that they're one of the highest paid unions. You could argue whether our employees deserve it or not. Many do a wonderful job, but they are one of the highest paid in the whole Tri-County area, and they still ask for a 27% raise. During the ethics committee meetings, they were very concerned and very hostile in our meetings in terms of us moving forward with this, because they were afraid it was going to be used against ASME union employees. And obviously this isn't the case of why we want to have an ethics ordinance, but they were very challenging to work with. Not all of them, I want to be very clear, but many of them. And so I do disagree that they are not political. They're very political. They let it be known in that meeting that they have a lot of influence, and some could even say that they're calling a lot of the shots in our township. And to attack members of this board, I don't think is 100% accurate either. They claim that not everything being said about them was accurate. I don't think all of his claims are completely accurate and 100% transparent either. So we got to look at this political action committee. We got to look at their donations, and we got to look at what they're trying to influence in our township. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the board.
Okay, there's nobody else raising their hand here. Does anyone else wish to speak? Just raise your hand virtually or press *9. Nothing, Janet.
Janet, you need to move on to new business number 8.
Very well, General Counsel, FOIA Appeal 2020-64. Mr. Meehan, are you going ahead?
Yeah, let me just address it. As the board is aware of a particular piece of information that I had provided the board under the attorney-client privilege and under the work product doctrine, and have shared in terms of strategy with your insurance provider has been FOIA'd. I had advised Clerk Posey not to produce that material, but to redact it and produce all of the other material that followed that opinion in discussion. And as I understand it, she has done so. Not as I understand it, I actually saw what she produced, so she has done so. And Mr. Soko, as I understand it, asserting his legal rights that I applaud, has sought for reconsideration of the board. And I would simply say to the board that my legal advice is that the comments that have been made in that email not only are reflective of the status of the legal matter, but are reflective of my strategy and my thought processes as to how the authority litigation was starting and would proceed. And I believe that both of the protections prohibit that disclosure. Now, I will say, in all due respect and in transparency, that the board has the option to waive the attorney-client privilege and to waive the work product doctrine. I would advise you not to do so, but it is a decision that is made by the board and the board only. And I thank you for the opportunity to speak one last time with you all. It's just been just a lot of good time, good work, and I've enjoyed working with you. And I'm not going anywhere if you have questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Mann? No question from the board? Then is there a motion? It would be to either grant the appeal or deny the appeal.
Madam Chair, Charlie Oliver.
Mr. Oliver,
My motion would be to recommend, follow Greg Meehan's recommendation not to release that information.
motion by Mr. Oliver
Support by Smith.
and you are
Trustee Smith.
Kathy Smith. Motion
Yeah.
by Ms. Goodhue, seconded by Smith to deny.
No.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Oliver, excuse me, Janet, Mr. Oliver and Kathy Smith.
Yep.
Thank you. Motion by Mr. Oliver, seconded by Ms. Smith to deny the appeal of FOIA number 2020-64. Ms. Posey, would you call the roll?
Yes, Supervisor Dunn. Trustee Oliver,
Yes.
Trustee Smith,
Yes.
Trustee Bussino,
No.
Trustee Nevers,
No.
Treasurer Goodhue,
No.
Clerk Posey, yes. Supervisor Dunn.
Yes. That motion
That
carries.
motion carries.
Thank you. Next, we have the Supervisor's Office, and this is the request to schedule the 2020-2021 budget public hearing. All that is needed are the dates for the public hearing, and those have been suggested as May 27th and June the 10th. May I have a motion to that effect?
Karen Goodhue, I'll make a motion that we set the budget hearings for May 27th and June 10th, 2020.
Motion by Ms. Goodhue,
Support. Nancy Nevers.
supported by Ms. Nevers, to approve May 27th and June 10th as the public hearing date for the budget. Ms. Posey, would you call the roll?
Yes, Madam Supervisor. Treasurer Goodhue,
Yes.
Trustee Nevers,
Yes.
Trustee Bussino,
Yes.
Trustee Oliver,
Yes.
Trustee Smith,
Yes.
Clerk Posey, yes, and Supervisor Dunn.
Yes, thank you. Motion carries. Next, we have the Foley Mansfield invoice. You were sent the correspondence from me, but I will read it for the public. On January 22nd of 2020, the Human Resource General Counsel was placed on administrative leave. In an effort to retain legal representation for the township, I contacted Foley Mansfield. My objective was to keep the township moving ahead on legal issues without any delays. I am authorized to spend up to $5,000. However, the invoice is $6,932.50. I did not anticipate the impact that COVID-19 would have on the township and exceed my limit. I am requesting authorization for payment of services rendered by Foley Mansfield. Thank you. Are there any questions?
Yes, Madam Chair, this is Trustee Bussino. I just have a question. You say you contacted Mr. Mean. I'm trying to figure out how you came about to contacting him. The only reason I ask, I remember in May of 2019, you voted against hiring Mr. Mean into the investigation of Mr. Assorti. Could you explain to us how you came to that point of contacting Mr. Mean?
I contacted Mr. Mean because he had done some work for us previously, that being what you just quoted. I don't know anybody else in that regard that is good with labor issues. So these are two separate instances that we had to have legal advice on. So I called him, he agreed, and you have before you the invoice. Any other question?
Madam Chair,
yes,
this is
Madam
Karen Goodhue. Oops,
Go ahead,
this is
Karen.
Karen Goodhue. I'd just like to make a statement. A lot of times, things are referred to the 3 full-time elected officials. And I just want to make the statement to the residents so that the residents and the other board members know that I was not in on this conversation. And when I did ask you, Ms. Dunn, how much we were paying for Mr. Meehan, you did not know at the time. So I just want the residents and the rest of the board members to know those facts. Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
pardon me, finish up whoever was talking, I'll wait.
Ms. Nevers, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Madam Chair, I would like to make a motion. I understand that you had the right, without a board approval or a vote, to authorize a $5,000 limit on services. Therefore, my motion is to pay Foley, Mansfield, $5,000. Thank you.
Motion by Ms. Nevers,
Support, Trustee Bussino, support.
supported by Mr. Buzzino to pay $5,000. I would like to mention that I have another invoice for services that is not on this particular invoice. However, Ms. Posey, would you call the roll?
Yes, Madam Supervisor. Trustee Nevers,
Yes.
Trustee Bussino,
Yes.
Trustee Oliver,
I got a question on the motion. This is to Mrs. Nevers. So
Yes.
you're saying only pay out of the $69,3250, you only want to pay $5,000?
Yes.
What about
Yes,
the balance? You don't
yes.
you don't feel that we owe this company the balance?
Well, I'm not saying that it isn't owed. What I'm saying is we were never asked to vote on Mr. Meehan's whether he was our general counsel or not. In fact, I was never even introduced to him until much later, and I believe he needs to be paid. However, the process wasn't followed correctly, but he does. Miss Dunn does have the authority to charge to spend $5,000. I want to be fair, and with the process. Therefore, that is my motion, to pay him $5,000, or Foley Mansfield, I'm sorry.
Ms. Nevers, I could just point out to you what I said in my correspondence, that we incurred some expenses from COVID-19. Those will be reimbursed to us under the Emergency Act.
Well, I was not aware of that, and I don't understand how that would, I just don't understand how that would be something that needed to be looked at by legal counsel. I may be ignorant on that, but my motion stands.
So again, you're leaving this company. So, Mrs. Nevers, just one quick question.
Yes, sure.
So you're saying not to pay the balance, which would be $1,932.50, correct?
Well, I'm not saying it never to be paid. I'm saying perhaps there needs to be a different process. Perhaps it needs to be brought to the board for a vote on a particular balance. I understand
Well,
there
we'd
are
be
more
voting
services,
for that.
but the balance
Okay.
of what over and above the 5,000. But
But
that needs to be voted
technically-
on by the board, by the board. That is the
I
process
understand,
that's
Ms.
always
Nevers.
been in place. I'm sorry?
I understand, but technically, we're
Okay.
voting on either on paying the $69,3250 or 5,000, so we are bringing it to the board now. So, okay, I guess I
Yes.
got this answer.
And we
All
need
right,
to have,
I'm
yeah,
done.
and then we'll have the vote.
Madam
Chair, Madam Chair, this is Trustee Busno. The only thing I want to mention on this is I, via email and at a board meeting, and Mr. Cusimano just brought this up, I have repeatedly asked for a list of expenses that are related to our pandemic. And I've repeatedly got silence when I've asked about that. Now, when we want something passed, apparently there is a list out there of expenses related to the pandemic that you have not produced, and you've been very silent about it last time I asked about it. And this board, if we are going to start making decisions about what's outside our budget and in our budget, we need that list. It can't be used to support a vote, but suppressed at other times. Thank you.
All right. This is Trustee
Madam Chair,
Oliver again. We need to vote on this before we get off. There's a motion on the floor. Let's keep moving forward. Thank you for your information, and let's vote on it.
Madam Chair, this is Trustee Smith. I guess I don't follow. So we're only going, the vote is to pay him $5,000, and what are we doing with the other $1,600? We're gonna let him file a lawsuit so we pay him that money? I don't understand.
Madam Chair, if I may, I'm not saying that he needs to file a lawsuit or whatever. I'm saying that the balance, and apparently there are further charges, need to be brought to the board for a vote on those services. But I am trying to follow protocols from years. The supervisor has the right to go out and spend $5,000 without board approval. Unfortunately, I'm sure she didn't know what this bill would cost, but it is over $5,000. So I'm saying let's pay the $5,000 and revisit the rest of the money.
Okay, so Trustee Nevers, I'm sorry, so you just want to pay the $5,000 today?
Yes, and then we'll
And
revisit.
and revisit the other? Okay, thank you.
That is correct.
Madam Chair, this is Clerk Posey. I'd like to ask Trustee Nevers if she's ever met any of the council that Mr. Assorti has contracted out to prior to them providing services to the township.
And my answer to that is no. However, Mr. Meehan has been in meetings. We were in closed door meetings, and I was never formally introduced, and he was never, although he said he, and so that other gentleman too, was said to be our legal counsel, we were never consulted, nor did we ever vote.
Trustee Nevers, I'd like to inform you that I've never been formally introduced to anybody that Mr. Assorti has contracted out to. They've been in meetings with us. They actually have come into closed session with us and gave us advice, and I've never been introduced to them prior. And the board, several of us, tried to get a vote that all expenses over $5,000, including professional services, had to go before the board for approval. And you voted against that and allowed Mr. Assorti to have carte blanche when it came to legal professional services and did not have to have board approval. So we are following protocol, actually. It's the one that you guys set.
Pardon me for interrupting. Are you finished? I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt you.
No. So I'm just indicating that there was an attempt to make sure that all services over $5,000 get board approval, and 4 of you voted against it and allowed for legal professional services to not require board approval.
Well, if I remember correctly, that caveat was part of Mr. Assorti's contract, that whomever he felt was the best person to bring in for legal advice, that was his decision.
That was
So,
the
but
caveat
Mr.
presented to the board by Mr. Krasinski, actually. But nevertheless, I'm just indicating that this has been the protocol for legal professional services. So, Madam Chair, there's a motion and support on the floor if you want to continue with the vote. I don't have anything else to say.
Ms. Posey, could you go over the vote so far? I'm sorry.
Yes, the motion was made by Trustee Nevers to only pay $5,000 of the Foley Mansfield invoice. She has voted yes. Trustee Busno has voted yes. Trustee Oliver,
No.
Trustee Smith,
No.
Treasurer Goodhue,
No.
Clerk Posey, no, and Supervisor Dunn.
No. Thank
That
you.
motion fails.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
this is Karen Goodhue.
Mhm.
I think because of the concerns that were raised, I think it would be very beneficial to the members of the board if you do bring back the services that we received from Mr. Meehan that had to do with COVID-19.
Mr. Meehan has been the acting attorney until Monday of this week. He should be paid accordingly for his services, whatever they are
Correct.
related to.
Correct. But you made the statement that it was because of COVID-19.
Some of it.
So, okay. So I'm just asking, I think it would be beneficial to the members of the board, especially the ones that disagreed, to see where his services were used for COVID-19.
Ms. Goodhue, in all due respect, this particular invoice has been delayed 2 weeks, giving all of the trustees ample time to review this statement. You're waiting until the last minute now to contest it. I would suggest when the next invoice comes, everybody should do their homework and make their own decisions. Thank you.
Madam Chair, this
Madam-
is Trustee Busno. This is Trustee Busno again. I find that comment to be unfair. Again, it's almost like you're ignoring facts here. I sent an email asking for COVID. I asked at our last regular board meeting for a list of expenses.
That
You
was,
won't let us do our homework. You won't let us do our homework, Madam Chair.
Mr. Bosano?
Madam Chair. Madam Chair, this is Trustee Smith. I'm going to make a motion to pay the full amount of $6,932.50.
Motion by Ms. Smith,
Support by Oliver.
supported by Mr. Oliver to pay the entire amount on the invoice. Ms. Posey, please call the roll.
Yes, Madam Supervisor. Trustee Smith,
Yes.
Trustee Oliver,
Yes.
Trustee Busno,
No.
Trustee Nevers,
No.
Treasurer Goodhue.
Yes.
I didn't hear you, Treasurer.
Yes.
Clerk
Did you
Posey,
hear me?
yes, and Supervisor, yes, I got it. Thank you. Supervisor Dunn?
Yes. Thank
Motion
you.
carries.
Thank you. We will now move on to the add-on, which was the grant application. You're the one that added it to the agenda. Would you like to present?
Yes. Mr. Bunch said that he would be available for any questions. I'm not sure if he's here. I think the last 4 digits of his phone number are 6231. If Ryan can see.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
6231.
Who am I looking for?
Christopher Bunch.
6231, there he is. You want me to allow him to speak?
Please.
Yes, please.
Okay. Go ahead, Chris.
Thank you. Yes.
Mr. Bunch, Mr. Bunch sent us the options today in a form of an email. After he sent us an email on Monday saying that they need to know if we're going to apply or not. I've talked with several different people on this. It is a good option to go for this grant. Option 1, I've read through all of them, is what I agree with. And if Mr. Bunch wants to explain anything else, I would go ahead.
Sure. Thank you very much. Thank you, trustees, Madam Chair. Thank you all for giving us the opportunity to bring this forth again. And so the short version is that, as you know, there have been some appraisals done that set the value of the property in the realm of 1.8 to $2 million, and that those appraisals have also been reviewed and supported by Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund review staff. I realize there is a disagreement on the value of the property between some of the folks in the township and that appraisal. But the upshot is that there is a purchase agreement that you have with us, with Six Rivers, to pay $1.2 million for the property. There is a value that seems to be legitimately established that says that it's worth more. And so what we have proposed is that if you apply for $1.8 million, then you agree to commit a 30% local match to it, Six Rivers will absorb half of that local match if the grant is awarded. We'll absorb half of that local match, and that will significantly reduce your cash out of pocket to acquire this property. And again, if you move forward with option 1, in addition to agreeing to absorb half of the local match, we will also bring some of the proceeds of the sale back to the table to offset some of the carrying costs and transaction costs that you guys have agreed to cover while we hold the property on your behalf. So if we move forward with option 1, if we apply for 1.8 million, which is slightly less than the lower of the 2 appraisals we got that has been approved by the state of Michigan, there is a distinct possibility that we can save you a significant amount of money, and you can complete the acquisition of this property on behalf of the township for significant savings, and you will end up with a very nice nature park and a nice piece of property, and it will cost you about 25% of its fair market value. So our recommendation is that you proceed with option 1, and I guess I will conclude by saying that the trust fund deadline was April 1st, and because of the COVID-19 pandemic that we are in the midst of, the trust fund provided some verbal dispensation for grant applicants across the state, and said that they would be willing to provide a little bit of leeway and to extend some additional time for some of the required actions that have to come with the grant. In fact, they've said they would give until August for people to fulfill a couple of the details in terms of attachments that they have to provide. But the grant application itself needs to be in, and the action supporting the grant application needs to be done for the grant to go in. And 34 other communities across the state of Michigan managed to get their applications in by the deadline. So we have been in communication with trust fund staff several times now since April 1st, and we've said that we hoped the township was moving forward, but we didn't know that window is closing. So we need to be able to respond to them and tell them whether there's going to be an application or not. And if there's not, then we need to move on. So
no way they wanted to go there.
We hope that you will go ahead tonight and adopt the the resolution that we provided you that authorizes moving forward in pursuit of the grant for 1.8 million with a 30% local match. And I guess I will finish by saying we have said to you that we will actually complete the grant application for you. We had already started that process. We stopped all work on it when you passed the resolution last time, but it's there. We are ready to pick it up. We are ready to get it out, get it done, and get it in, assuming you choose to move forward.
Thank you, Mr. Bunch.
Madam Chair, I got a question to Mr. Bunch. Charlie Oliver, trustee, are you there still?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Could you explain option 2? There was another option. You're only explaining option 1. Could you give me some info on option 2?
Sure. Option 2 is you can choose to move forward with the grant amount in $1.2 million, which is the original purchase agreement you have with us. That's the amount of money we paid for it. Option 2 recommends that you, if you go forward with the grant at $1.2 million, that you commit to a 30% local match. And then under option 2, if you're awarded the grant, you will be responsible to meet the full local match and all of the transactional and holding costs that you have committed to that are in the purchase agreement with us.
But option 1 is 818. It is isn't it generally a little bit harder to get the higher grants than it is to get the second one down? I've seen these grants before, and even if we got option 2, we would still be only liable for what 30. How much? What was your percentage of the property that we'd be liable for?
30% of $1.2 million, so $360,000 plus then the transaction costs and the interest and holding costs.
Okay. But I've seen these grants run. It just seems like it's always harder to get the higher one. It's always a little bit easier to get the next step down because they're, and you know this, you do this for a living, and I'm just thinking option 2 would be a better option if we're going to go this route. I think we'd have a better chance at it.
I guess my answer to that is that in the value range that we are talking about, the increased amount that we're suggesting that you pursue is not going to make a difference in whether you get the grant or not. 1.2 million or 1.8 million, that's not insignificant money, but it is not like the Sergeant Sands proposal that just came through back in January for $5 million, which is only half of what they want. And that was a much heavier lift for them to do. They managed to pull that off. Again, we are recommending, because you have 2 outside appraisers that don't have any interest in this and that interviewed both you guys and the seller of the property, and because the state of Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund appraisal review staff already reviewed and approved those appraisals last year, there is agreement that the value is there on the part of the people that would be awarding the fund. So the more important part at this point in history is whether or not the proposal scores high enough to be competitive. And if it scores high enough to be competitive, then the next question is there money? And so I guess the last comment that I would make is that when we get to that decision point, when they have their board meeting where they make the decision in December, there is the opportunity for you to be physically present at the meeting with an authorized official who can say, gee, we will reduce the amount we're asking for in order to make sure that you get something. But again, that's all predicated upon the proposal scoring high enough to get you there And you've got support for the values that are there, and the additional cushion that is in at the $1.8 million allows you opportunity to save an awful lot of money. So in our best judgment, we think you should go forward at 1.8 million.
Madam Chair, this is Clerk Posey, if I may. Mr. Bunch, I appreciate the constant communication with myself and your group. I've had a lot of questions with regards to the grant and the property. I guess when I'm looking at, my questions began when we started off with a grant at $2 million, then it went to 1.8, then now we have options of 1.8 and 1.2. I guess my struggle is, or I guess I would like to educate the board members on some things that I have concerns with, is the difference between the 1.8 and the 1.2. That difference, you're saying that if we went with option 2, the township would have to pay $360,000, but if we went with option 1, it's $270,000. That's a difference of $90,000. And then you're saying in option 2, we would have to incur the costs of purchase agreement, transaction costs is about $125,000. So with that being said, the difference between 1.8 and 1.2 is $600,000. We're looking at maybe $215,000. Where's the rest of that money going, was my question. And the answer was that if we get a grant that exceeds the $1.2 million paid by Six Rivers, it'll be used to lower the township's match contribution. However, any remainder is paid to Mr. Rose. So I guess I'm confused as to why Macomb Township would go for a grant for $1.8 million, although it may reduce our expenses, but it's also paying the property owner more money. So that's where I'm confused. I'm with Mr. Oliver. I believe that if we're going to purchase, we've already made an agreement to have this property. I believe the grant should be for the $1.2 million. Also, I just want members to be informed of the fact that we discussed grounds and facilities being put at this location. Once we are secured into this grant, we cannot just put grounds and facilities at this property. We have to actually buy back the property for grounds and facilities to go out there. So just be aware when you're voting tonight, if our grounds and facilities can't go out there unless we spend more money to put them out there. This will be preserved for a nature park, which is fine, but just be aware that the ideas that were presented to us at the time are not going to come to fruition unless we spend even more money. So I just wanted to make those things clear. We are in an agreement for this property. I do think it's in our best interest to try and get a grant to help reduce the cost. And if we can get 40 acres for $360,000, I think that's great. I just don't understand the whole 1.8, and that's my thoughts on that.
Madam Chair, this is Trustee Bassano. I've also had an opportunity to have some detailed conversations with Chris now that some other things in our township have settled down a bit. Because the first time I did vote to go ahead with this piece of property, and the second time I did not. And I remember having a conversation with Charlie, and Charlie, correct me if I'm wrong in any of this, that one of my objections that was relayed to me is I thought the Conservancy was going to have some kind of jurisdiction or some kind of say over the property once the grant closed. Chris, correct me if I'm wrong here. Can you answer two questions for me? We're making some big statements, but answer two questions. Is it fair enough to say that Mr. Rhodes would not have sold this property to us if he thought we were not going to preserve that nature piece? And two, what is your role as a Conservancy once the grant is established? Can you answer those two questions for us?
Sure. I'm going to answer them in reverse order. I'm going to answer the question about the Conservancy's role once the grant is closed and you own the property. We will have no role in it from that point forward. We've done other projects just like this one. St. Clair County owns a piece that we acquired on their behalf. They got the grant, they closed the deal, they own the property, they run it however they want within the framework of what the grant funds allow them to do. And they acquired it for a park, so they can do it however they want. Similarly with Casco Township, same deal. And once again, once they got the grant and closed the purchase, our involvement is limited to voluntary support of the actions that they ask us to help them out with in terms of planning the park. But we have no say, no directive over what they're doing with it, and we're not interested in having that. In relation to whether or not Mr. Rhodes would have sold the property to you guys if it wasn't going to be a park, you know, I think you have to, I think the answer to that gets to some of the discussion that Clerk Posey is alluding to and some of the long-term challenges that have been in place with this project. And that is that, you know, there was a significant amount of angst that evolved when Mr. Rhodes was initially trying to sell the property to the township, and it got so bad that the deal fell apart. Mr. Rhodes eventually came to us and asked if we could help see that the property got protected because he really wanted to see it be a park. He hoped we could work with you guys. We came and talked to you guys about it. We all agreed that we would get new appraisals and that those would be the basis for negotiations. We got those appraisals and then the township reverted to its original position, which was that they were only they weren't going to pay any more than 1.2 million. So Mr. Rhodes eventually chose to sell the property to us for that amount. And it is certainly absolutely true that we can sell it to you for that amount. Your obligation within the purchase agreement, our obligation to the lender is to pay back the loan. And so that contractual obligation works with you guys to get that done. We can do that. My thought process and our organizational thought process is that there is $600,000 of additional value that is agreed upon, especially by the entity that would be funding this acquisition. And so if there's that much extra capacity out there, why wouldn't we take advantage of that to reduce your costs? And if we take advantage of that, then we made an agreement with Mr. Rhodes that if we got more, we would send that back to him. But if we don't get any more, it doesn't matter. He's out. We own the property. He has nothing to say about it. So you guys could pay us off $1.2 million in wheelbarrows full of nickels tomorrow. And it's all yours and you can do whatever you want with it. We suggest that from a fiscal perspective, it makes sense to take advantage of the full amount of value that's out there and see if you can't reduce your costs and save yourself some money to put back into. And I guess the last piece I'll say is that, again, Clerk Posey is right that if you acquire the entire property, the entire 40 acres using trust fund dollars, then there will be some controls over what you can do with the buildings out there. If you chose to remove a portion of the property from the grant, if you chose to take out the, say, 4 acres with the buildings on it and keep that yourselves, then yes, you would have to pay for that to get it out of the piece that's being paid for the grant, but you would have full control over that and you would still have a grant to pay for the balance of the property, which would be a park. So it would change the financial equation. It would change it some, but it would give you the latitude to do what you want with the buildings. The cost differential would have to be worked out. We don't have, I don't have that in front of me right now. We'd have to figure that out. But I guess my point is we have time to amend the grant once we get the application in. But the deal is if you don't get the application in, then you've got nothing to talk about at whatever rate that you put the application in for. So we need to make a decision to move forward with the grant application, and we recommend you go for what you can get because that's an opportunity to bring more back to your township. And you know what happens to the balance of it really shouldn't have major bearing on your decision because significant benefit from going for more of this. It benefits all the parties that are involved rather than just one side or the other.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bunch. Anyone else have
Well,
any?
Yeah, I got Mr. Bunce, Charlie Oliver. Yeah, that balance does mean something to me because it's still taxpayers' money. So we got to respect it either way. Just so you know, all right?
Well, in general, I agree with you. Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund dollars are provided to benefit the residents of the state of Michigan. They are not, however, taxpayer dollars. Michigan Natural Resources Trust is funded by revenues from oil and gas production on state land. So they're not taxpayer dollars. They are constitutionally restricted to be used for the acquisition and development of land for parks and recreation purposes. So they're not coming out of anybody's paycheck. They're not anybody's taxpayer paycheck. They do derive from resources that are owned by the citizens of the state of Michigan, but they are not taxpayer dollars.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Madam Chair, at this time, I'm not sure if I printed the right resolution. So I'm going to make the motion to approve the resolution that coincides with option 1 as explained.
Motion by Ms. Goodhue,
Support by Ms. Nevers.
supported by Ms. Nevers to adopt the resolution according to option 1 as presented by Mr. Bunch. Ms. Posey, would you call the roll?
Yes, Madam Supervisor. Treasurer Goodhue?
Yes.
Trustee Nevers?
Yes.
Trustee Bussino?
Yes.
Trustee Oliver?
Nope.
Trustee Smith?
No.
Clerk Posey, no, and Supervisor Dunn.
Yes,
The motion carries.
this resolution is adopted. Thank you, Mr. Bunch.
Thank you. Thank you to all of you, and we'll get to work on this, and we'll communicate with you regularly about the status and how things are going. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Very well, now we will move on to board comments. We'll start off with trustees. Mr. Busno.
Yes, Madam Chair, I just got a couple things. First of all, I want to thank all military squadrons that flew over our region the last 2 days. Unfortunately, I did not get to see the first one. I was in my backyard in Macomb with the video ready, didn't get to see it, but today I made sure I was in the right spot to see it. So I want to thank everybody that was involved with that, promoted that. Quite a neat moment. We need moments of hope like that. My second thing is, I have a statement that I was prepared to read tonight as a follow-up to statements read at our last 2 board meetings. But sincerely, out of respect, because of events involving the supervisor the past couple days, I'm choosing not to read the statement tonight and wait to our next meeting to address some of the things that have been addressed our last 2 meetings. I'm sure every board member knows what I'm talking about. I'm hopeful that other board members will follow my lead and do the same. Those who know me, I'm not afraid to read tough statements, but I think this can wait. If others decide tonight is the appropriate time to address the statements, I will ask the chair to allow me to read my statement later on in the board comments. Thank you. That's all I have for tonight.
Yes, Madam Chair, Trustee Nevers. I have a couple of things, but I would like to address Mr. Martin's comments to me. First of all, there were several, I'm sorry?
Ms. Nevers.
Yes.
Mr. Busno, would you repeat your remark? You want to reserve your comments for what?
I wanted to reserve a statement that I was going to read, just out of respect for some events in the last couple of days.
This is your turn right now.
Okay. Okay, so I'm still going to reserve it. If other board members decide to, I'm going to reserve my comments. Thank you.
No, I'm sorry, but you have to make your comments now. This is trustees' comments time.
Okay, all right, I'm done. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Ms. Devers, go ahead.
Sure, okay. I would like to address Mr. Martin's comments. Oftentimes, incorrect statements are made, and there are no corrections, and then they become urban legend. Two statements that Mr. Martin made are categorically false. I never said there was a report on healthcare actuaries. I said Mr. Assorti felt we were at loggerheads, and perhaps he should have the finance director check out the actuaries on healthcare. And that, my statement was that those remarks were told to the union people, and within a New York minute, they went ahead and approved the contract that they had been fighting against for weeks and weeks. That's the first incorrect statement. The second one is I never said that township union members pilfered anything from the township. I would never say that. That is categorically false. So, Mr. Martin, I guess I'm going to say I have to agree to disagree with you tonight. The next comment I would like to say is a thank you to BPI for flawlessly allowing us to have our important meetings by Zoom. And believe me, it's been invaluable, and I really want to thank the people involved. Ryan, I know you're one of them, and there's another woman, but forgive me, I don't remember her name. And then last and most important for anybody that hasn't heard this, churches are open as of Tuesday, full mass schedule and sacraments. Thank you.
Mr. Oliver.
Okay, I'm off mute. Just a quick comment. I want to thank the last meeting that we had. We were in the state was at a crossroad on if we could open landscapers up and garden centers, and them are up and running. The garden centers are up and running, and I'm happy to see it. That's my industry. I'm happy to see all the residents out doing their thing. It sure makes spring nice. So again, thank all the residents that have bought supplies and gardening things from our local suppliers and vendors, and helps the state keep going. And that's all I got.
Thank you. Ms. Smith.
Madam Chair, thank you. I have nothing further to add this evening.
Very well. Treasurer's comments.
Yes. Everyone knows that when we went into lockdown, the water bills for the month of April were not sent out, and they were sent out late. We are starting to receive the bills in. They did go out late. We are starting to receive them in, and I've been helping today and can't help but notice all the little notes in there. So I want to remind our residents that we are not charging any penalties. We know they went out late, and we are not charging penalties. I believe the May bills went out today, and so therefore they're usually read about 2 weeks earlier than this. So these bills for the people that get their bills in May are probably going to be a little bit larger because of more time that usage levels that they had. We are also not charging any penalties on the May bills. We are starting to catch up, and I appreciate the residents that are real patient with us and the water department, because this is something that nobody knew was going to happen. So we do appreciate our residents being considerate and understanding with us. Also, I just want to make a comment that I have had a chance to go to the property that we were talking about this evening. And it is beautiful property, a beautiful nature field. It's like going up north and staying right home here in Macomb Township. I would like the board to entertain, maybe possibly at the next board meeting, if we put it on the next board meeting for discussion, a recreation of a park and rec commission that we could have residents on there as well as staff and board members to put our heads together and see how we want to have that developed for our residents. So it's a beautiful piece of property, and I'm sure our residents are going to enjoy it. Thank you very much. That's all I have this evening.
Thank you. Clerk's comments.
Madam,
Clerk's comments.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. I just want to provide some information to our voters with regards to the upcoming August 4th election. I understand how important it is for all of you to exercise your right to vote, even during a global pandemic. So now is a good time to consider your method of voting for August 4th primary election. All voters have the choice to vote by mail or at a polling location. Please contact the clerk's office or visit our website for more details. I will be updating the website to explain the security measures that are mandated if voting by absent mail-in ballot. And I will also include information on the infection protection that will be established to protect voters who wish to vote in person at a polling location. We sent out a mailer to all of our voters that are not currently on our permanent absent voter list, giving them information on how they can be added to our list. Please be advised that you will receive an application to vote by absent ballot in the mail that you will still be required by the state to complete and return to our office before we can mail your ballot. At a time when our residents are facing great uncertainty, our commitment to democracy will not waver. We are doing everything to inform voters of their choice to vote by absent voter or in person, because their vote is their voice. In the meantime, please stay safe and stay healthy. That's all I have to say. And my thoughts are for the Dunn family at this time during this difficult time. That's it.
Thank you. Under Supervisor Comments.
Madam Chair, I got what, this is Charlie Oliver again. I forgot one thing.
Mr. Oliver, I'm sorry, but I just would not let Mr. Buzzano do that, and I can't.
Okay, got it.
I'm sorry.
Got it, okay. No worries.
I am pleased to inform the board that I have appointed a deputy to serve until the end of my term. Ms. Terry Colwall has accepted the position. Some of you may know her as she has served as trustee and township clerk for Shelby Township for 22 years. Then the city clerk for Auburn Hills for another 6 years. I have known her for over 20 years and hold her in high regard. Terry is very knowledgeable in township matters and local government in general as a result of her almost 30 years of service to the public. Upon moving into the township with her husband, Terry applied to assist with the election and did so on March 10th. Terry will be able to fill in for me when needed at meetings and events and will be performing duties for my office as assigned. If you have a chance, stop in when we are finally open and welcome her to the township staff. The next item I would like to address is the special meeting that was called on April 29th for the Loudermill hearing of Mr. Sorting. I wish to protest the decision that he be allowed to return to work. Number one, reason. I have some information that is very clear to me that he was advising at least 2 other board members on what to say and what to do and not informing anyone else. I am very much aware of this tactic as he previously did this with me also. Number 2, Mr. Assorti disregarded any chain of command and asked the IT manager to get him a security camera tape of the entrance to the coat room area of the board chambers where the secured ballot box was located so he would know who had filled out the evaluation of his performance. Clearly to me, this is a sign of future retaliation. Number 3, I have to accept the advice of legal counsel, Mr. Meehan, in regards to recusing myself from the Laudermill hearing. In fact, his words to me were, and I quote, "You can't go," unquote. So I did not. And we have to accept his research regarding the fact that a 3-3 tie vote means Mr. Assorti returns to Town Hall. Number 4, the employees are afraid of retaliation. The department heads are afraid of retaliation. I am afraid of retaliation. This is a hostile work environment. For these reasons, I would like to make a motion to terminate Mr. Assorti's employment immediately. Thank you. Very well, since there is no second to that motion.
Madam Chair, I will second that motion.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. One at a time. Ms. Smith, did you have a comment?
Madam Chair, Charlie Oliver was commenting.
Okay. Mr. Oliver.
Yeah. Was you done, Madam Chair, with your statement?
I'm sorry.
Are you done with your statement?
I am done with my statement.
Are you looking for a motion?
I made the motion. I don't hear any support. So that means the motion failed.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Charlie Oliver supported the motion.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. There was too many people talking at the time. So we have a motion by Ms. Smith, support from Mr. Oliver to terminate Mr. Assorti's employment immediately.
So Madam Chair, this is Trustee Bassano. That would open up the floor to discussion now. But the question I would have is, Mr. Assorti been presented with any announcement that we were considering termination? Have you given him any kind of information that this was going to happen? Have you delivered that to him? This is very important under a just cause contract. I think this is very reckless what's going on here. Can you answer that question? Have you delivered any information to him that this was going to happen tonight?
Mr. President, if you would allow me, I gave this information to Mr. Meehan this afternoon, and he did not tell me not to say it.
No, the question I have is, does Mr. Assorti have any kind of information in front of him that he may be terminated?
I didn't give him any, no.
There's no way we can vote for this under just cause, but okay. This is absolutely reckless.
Madam Chair, this is Trustee Smith. I think at this point, with your comments, I'd like to make a motion to hire outside counsel for the employee matters, including up to the whistleblower lawsuit. I think that at this point, with Mr. Meehan being gone now, I think we need to hire outside counsel regarding this matter.
Very well.
I think there is outside counsel already from the MML. Is there not, that's handling this lawsuit?
The attorneys from
Not that I'm aware of.
the attorney from MML are defending the lawsuit that Mr. Assorti filed against the township. And
Madam Chair, did you let the insurance company know what you were doing right now? This is Trustee Bussino. Did you let the insurance company know what you're doing right now? And if a lawsuit comes, are we all going to be named in it? I don't want my assets up for grabs here if our insurance company isn't going to cover this move. And I would caution for the board to reflect on this very carefully.
Madam Chair, this is Trustee Smith. I guess I would, if we have outside counsel already regarding this whistleblower lawsuit, I would like to have a chance to talk to them. I have a couple questions.
what are your questions?
So if
Okay, Madam Chair, I'd like to be on the record saying that this is way out of order, in my opinion.
It is way out of order.
I'm not sure how it's out. Okay.
You can't keep taking votes until you get what you want.
Amen. Nevers.
There was a motion and it was seconded. Ms. Posey, would you call the roll?
Madam
Yes,
Chair,
ma'am.
may I ask more a question? I'm sorry, this is Trustee Smith. So the statement that you made this evening, you talked to the outside counsel that's handling this whistleblower lawsuit. And she's aware of what your motion is.
My motion is to terminate Mr. Assorti's employment here immediately.
On whose advice?
Nobody, my own. This is not going to work. There is no trust any longer. I got a lengthy email from him today because he showed up here at the office without any notice to me. I am his direct supervisor. I asked him if he needed something to please notify me. He disregarded the whole thing.
Mrs. Dunn.
Madam Chair, this is out of order. This is totally out of order. I don't even understand what's going on here. As Ms. Goodhue said, we can't keep voting till you get the result that you want. This is bizarre.
Mrs. Dunn, Miss Smith, please. Mrs. Dunn, sure. Mr. Assorti came in to get his stuff on Monday morning. They did not set up his computer properly. IT told him to come back because it was not able to be done remotely. You said he should work from home. How can he work from home if he doesn't have the equipment? We made sure all of our other employees had the right equipment to be able to work from home before they left. I think he deserves the same respect.
I told him he can come back to work anytime as long as he tells me first that he's coming. I have some personal issues right now that I have to deal with, but I will drop everything and come over here to accommodate him.
Madam Chair, this is Trustee Smith. I understand your frustration with the comments that you made this evening. I'm asking if we could table this matter, please.
There is a motion on the floor and it was seconded.
You want me to call the roll?
Is there any more discussion before I call for a vote?
Madam Chair, this is Trustee Smith. I still have some questions I would like to ask legal counsel before I make this vote. I'm asking that we table this matter, please.
Madam Chair, this is Trustee Oliver.
Yes.
In lieu of what Mrs. Smith just brung up, I think maybe that would be the best solution here. Just to table it, let's settle everything down. Maybe we could get some outside counsel to look at this, another set of eyes. If you're really concerned for your safety and the safety of the workers, I understand where you're going. Maybe right now, at this point in time, it would be a good idea maybe to table this item. And we could come back in 2 weeks and decide how we want to treat this.
Or if they wanted to have a special meeting in a week.
Mr. Oliver, Ms. Smith and Mr. Oliver, do you want to withdraw your motion?
Yeah, I'll withdraw my open. Well, first we'd have to withdraw it. Is that correct, Mrs. Posey?
Correct.
And then we'd make a motion to table it. So I would withdraw my motion right now, and then Mrs. Smith.
Okay, and Madam Chair, this is Trustee Smith again. Is Mr. Meehan still on the line?
Ms. Smith?
I don't see him on the line, Trustee Smith.
Okay.
I would prefer to have a different attorney.
We have no counsel that we can speak to right now. I know Mr. Authority is back, but we can't talk to him regarding this matter. And that's another reason why I would like this tabled. If Mr. Meehan was on the line, maybe we could, but.
Okay, Madam Chair.
Very good information, and I would like to talk more about this information. And
Point of order.
Mrs. Dunn, I think that if you have an issue and you're afraid of any issue that you have with Mr. Authority, we don't have attorney here, but I would think you could put him back on administrative leave if you're in fear.
You know,
what caused you
everybody
to have
has
fear,
made a statement. I would like to say this sounds like retaliation to me against Mr. Authority for his whistleblower lawsuit. I'm on the record for saying that. Thank you.
Well, Ms. Nevers, Ms. Dunn just said that she was afraid. I think that until
Miss Smith, this is Karen Goodhue.
Yes.
Mrs. Dunn,
yes.
Could you please? I was there yesterday, and I know there was a counsel from Foley, Mansfield, with you. What did Mr. Authority do to make you afraid? I know you're in an emotional state right now, and I think we need to table it like Ms. Smith asked.
And I think that if at this point, if you want to put him on administrative leave, I think you have the ability to do that until you talk to counsel.
If I may, please. Mr. Meehan, Mr. Howard here for my protection. And that was his direct quote, my protection.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, oh my goodness is right. Now,
pardon me, I'm going to be out of order, and I'm sorry, but I can't believe that you would think that you would suffer harm, a physical harm from Mr. Authority. I blows my mind.
if you don't want to address this tonight, you need to withdraw your motion. Ms. Smith and Mr. Oliver.
Okay.
I did not make the.
Right. Trustee Oliver withdraws his motion now, but I want to see this tabled and brought back.
All you have to say,
Trustee Oliver, you'll have to make it in the form of a motion.
all you have to do, Mr. Oliver, is say, I would like to remove my motion.
I would like to rescind my motion, Trustee.
Ms. Smith, do you withdraw your support?
Okay, I didn't support a motion, Ms. Dunn. I made a motion to table, And I also made a motion to put on administrative.
Charlie Oliver made the motion, Kathy Smith supported it. All you have to do is say, I want to withdraw my support. Then we will move on to hiring separate legal counsel.
Trustee Oliver removed his support.
Yeah, I remove my support on the motion.
Right.
Trustee Oliver.
Ms. Smith, do you remove your support?
Ms. Dunn, you made the motion.
Right. Yeah, Miss Dunn, I think you made the motion and I supported it. And in lieu of what Mrs. Smith just said, I think it might be a good idea. I understand your concern for your safety. I understand some workers are concerned for their safety. I think it'd be a good idea to maybe bring another set of eyes on it. There was some confusion on things that were told to us. For example, I wanted to ask a question and I was told not to ask a question. And then other people asked questions and made statements. So I wasn't really comfortable with that either.
What statement did you want to make that somebody told you not to?
Well, Mr. Meehan told me, when I wanted to make a statement, Mr. Meehan told me at the time it wasn't appropriate time, and then he never really brought me back to it. So I felt he didn't want to, and I really don't want to go into that statement right now because that's done. Actually, I will say this. I couldn't understand why you couldn't vote. That was the statement I want to make.
I don't know.
And if you want to know it, that's what I wanted to ask for back then, but I never had the opportunity to ask that. And then, other board members talked, and I didn't really think that was quite fair, but Mr. Meehan was running it, so I didn't want to argue with our own attorney at the time.
I appreciate that.
Madam Chair, this is Trustee Smith. I'd have to make the same agreement with Mr. Oliver there. We were told that at the Laudermill hearing, we weren't allowed to ask any questions of Mr. Authority. Madam Chair, at this point, I still would like to make a motion to table. I also think that you have the right to put Mr. Authority back on leave if you're in fear. And I also think we have to have a motion for outside counsel.
One at a time.
I make a motion to table. Never mind. We withdrew those motions. But I do think we should make a motion to have outside counsel for employee matters, including and not limited to the whistleblower lawsuit.
Motion by Ms. Smith,
I'll support that motion.
seconded by Mr. Oliver to table this. How long do you want it for tabling? 2 weeks, a month, what?
Next meeting's fine, Ms. Dunn.
Ms. Posey, would you call the roll?
Can I ask a question, Ms. Posey? Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Or do we have to wait till after we have the motion?
I'm sorry, what was that?
The motion has support. You can ask the question.
Are you going? Who's going to pick this lawyer? I would like the whole board to be in agreement. Maybe somebody outside of this area so that they're not connected to it. But I think the board needs to vote on someone to look at this in the bipartisan, not a hand-picked person.
Karen, this is Charlie Oliver.
Yes.
Yes.
I could not agree with you anymore.
Okay,
you're 100% right on that.
You can't. There's no discussion on tabling the motion. So there's a motion on the floor from Trustee Smith to postpone this until the next meeting, and there's support by Charlie Oliver.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay, so I'm going to call the roll call vote on postponing the issue. Trustee Smith?
Yes.
Trustee Oliver?
Yes.
Trustee Bassano?
Yes.
Trustee Nevers,
Yes.
Treasurer Goodhue,
Yes.
Clerk Posey, yes. Supervisor Dunn?
No. That motion carries. That concludes the business for this evening. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Karen Goodhue, I'll make that motion.
Motion by Ms. Goodhue,
Supported by
Support by
Clerk Posey.
Smith.
who supported that?
Clerk Posey.
Supported by Posey to adjourn. Ms. Posey, would you call the roll?
Yes. Treasurer Goodhue,
Yes.
Clerk Posey, yes. Trustee Bussino,
Yes.
Trustee Nevers, Trustee Nevers, Trustee Oliver,
Thomas.
Yes.
Trustee Smith? Yes. And Supervisor Dunn?
Yes. Thank you.